1, 2. Off you go.
I used to think I was a solo pilot, set to fly across the sea alone. But there's a scar running down my ribcage, where you were cut from me so long ago. And the morning after the party, you were driving your long way, and I drew a line around your body. In the mist on the mirror, oh, the world is just two lovers. Oh, the world is just two lovers. And you've come around once or twice now, and yeah, you've been around a few times more. And I don't always recognize you in all of your different forms. And the morning after the party, you were driving your long way, and I drew a line around your body. In the mist in the mirror, oh, the world is just two lovers. Oh, the world is just two lovers. You spend all your time dreaming of where you've been and when you're leaving. You were born a traveling woman. I was born at home. How can I keep giving love? How will you hold me near, love? Your back is well worn, and your passport book is nearing full. Sometimes it seems like you don't need anything. Sometimes it feels like you don't need anyone. But when the phone calls start coming in, your voice sounds lonely on the line. Maybe we're just born this way, a gypsy babe on a winter's day. Maybe we'll learn how to stay, or I will learn how to follow. I spend all my time worrying about your plans to go wandering. I want to make a home, but I understand your need for time alone. How can I be the one to move and chase the sun? My boat, it is full of fruit, but your walking shoes are always on. Maybe we're just born this way, a gypsy babe on a winter's day. Maybe we'll learn how to stay, or I will learn how to follow. Maybe we're just born this way, a gypsy babe on a winter's day. Maybe we'll learn how to stay, or I will learn how to follow. Maybe we're just born this way, a gypsy babe on a winter's day. Maybe we'll learn how to stay, or I will learn how to follow.
Hey everyone.
Hello.
Welcome. Thanks, Naomi. That was beautiful.
So beautiful.
Online claps. Thanks for sharing.
My pleasure.
Joel, you're muted.
That's quite a nice way to start a mental health panel. So yeah, thank you for that. That was really nice. That was Naomi Keyte. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Where's Your Head Out, the third installment of Our New Normal, a weekly series of webinars brought to you by Music SA. My name is Joel Byrne and I'm one half of the industry development team. And tonight we'll be discussing mental health and specifically how to manage it in this COVID reality. Tonight we'll be getting some valuable insight from a cross-section of both the national and local music community. So I hope there is information shared tonight that is of some value to all of you tuning in. I will start off by mentioning that if you do indeed feel the need to reach out and talk to anyone at this time, please don't hesitate to contact any of the services that are out there and designed to specifically help in these situations. We have links to all these organisations and they can be found in our COVID resources section of our website. So please don't hesitate to seek out these resources if needed. Before I introduce our panel, I'd just like to acknowledge that for us in Adelaide, we are meeting on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pay respect to elders past and present. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationships with the land. We acknowledge that they are of a continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today. And we also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations. Firstly, can I get a bit of a virtual applause for Naomi, our stunning guest for tonight. Naomi Keyte has been a fixture of the Adelaide music scene for some time, having spent her formative years playing with indie darlings, Goldblum, and rhythm and soul band, the Transatlantics. She has since established herself as an accomplished solo performer and has been wowing audiences with her lyrical sensitivity and rich sounds since emerging in 2016. She's recently released her latest single, Travelling Woman, which is the first release since her 2017 debut, Melaleuca. And Naomi also happens to be joining us tonight as a representative of Nexus Arts, where she holds the position of Artist Development Officer. Thanks for being with us, Naomi. How are you going?
Thanks, Joel. Yeah, I'm actually doing relatively...
I think it's really important. It's an important question to ask, isn't it? How's it going in this situation?
It is important to ask each other, check in, and we can't assume that anyone else is coping in the same way that we are. So I think discourse and dialogue around people's coping mechanisms and just how they're tracking along generally is really important.
100%, I totally agree. Now, let me introduce the rest of our panel. I'll start with our interstate guests joining us tonight. From the National Crisis Relief Agency Support Act, we have Lou
Savaleski.
I was practicing it before we started, and even then I was like, no, I'll be all right with this, but no, I wasn't. Sorry, Lou. Lou is a passionate music artist manager, booker, and promoter currently based in New South Wales. She's worked part-time for the music-based charity in fundraising, marketing, and community development since October 2018, but also brings with her a wealth of experience, having worked in venue management, artist management, and events, bookings, promotions, stage management, and festival work. Shit, Lou, how much have you done in the industry?
A little bit in a short amount of time, I think. But
it's very valuable knowledge to have, especially when it comes to a panel. So I'm sure there's a variety of stuff that you're going to be able to share. So thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Now, we have someone representing from the more unsung and less glamorous, but by no means less important segment of the live music industry, that being the road crew. From Volume Touring, we welcome Matthew Yogi Donnan. How are you? How are you, Yogi?
I'm good, thank you.
Good to have you. Yogi has started working in the music industry way back in 1999 as an all-rounder and guitar tech for a local Sydney band, like one of the most seminal Sydney bands, Cog, amongst others. Wow. He's since gone on to tour nationally and internationally as a tour manager of some of Australia's largest acts that include Grinspoon, Angus and Julia Stone, Parkway Drive, Dope Lemon, Wolf and Cub, as well as international acts Fiddler, Clutch, The Ghost Inside. Recently he's launched a clothing label called Roadsick Apparel, which seems to be popping up as a bit of a go-to label for most of the Australian road crew that I kind of come in contact with. Can you speak to that much, Yogi? Is there any road crew you aren't dressing in Roadsick Apparel?
Well, most of the road crew out there need a new T-shirt every now and again. So.
Well, they all seem to be getting it from your website by the looks of things.
I aim to please.
It's great to have you, Yogi. Good to see you because, Yogi and I know each other, so I'm great to have you on board. Now I'd like to introduce you to our locals. Our next guest, and probably the first doctor we've ever had on one of our panels, we welcome Dr. Sharon Robertson. Sharon is the principal clinical psychologist at Davies and Robertson Psychology in North Adelaide and has worked in private practice treating a wide range of anxiety and depressive disorders for the last 10 years. She is also a keen supporter of psychology in the arts, working with performers, assisting with characterization, script development, and helping musicians to overcome a range of mental health disorders. Sharon, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
look forward to kind of getting some of your valuable insight. I think you probably spend the most time at university out of anyone on this panel, I imagine, as well. So
maybe not, but I'm more than happy to help out.
Well, it's great to have you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And finally, from Headspace Adelaide, we welcome Claire Coleman. Claire is the Community Engagement Officer at Headspace Adelaide. And for those that are unaware, Headspace is a free and confidential service where young people aged between 12 and 25 can access qualified youth mental health professionals, which they offer through two main programs: primary platform and early psychosis. Claire, I really appreciate having you, and thank you for representing probably some of the overlooked segment of the probably population at the moment is the youth. How's things going for you over there at the moment?
Yeah, still busy over here, but for us, sort of service at the moment, which I think I'll get into a bit later. But we're still running at the moment, which has been great, and just adapting like everyone else to the situation at the moment. But thanks for having me here today.
We've done a bunch of stuff with Headspace before, so it's great to have you on board. And I know most of our youth engagement activities, generally we have Headspace on board. So it's, again, great to have your insight.
Thanks.
Now, I'd like to hand it over to my colleague, Sian, who's going to start off our conversation. Sian, what do you got to say? Where's your head at?
Thanks for checking in on me, Joe. I'm all right. COVID's been an interesting time. I'm really intrigued to hear from this incredible group of people. I know that, you know, I'm really proud of the music industry for championing mental health. I think I was recently asked a little while ago about kind of the biggest challenges that we face in the arts, and I think one of the biggest challenges is the mental health crisis in terms of the amount of different expectations that are put on the kind of music community and the creative communities, and the lack of kind of financial income and support. And you know, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but the conversation around kind of the recognition from government in the arts sector of funding and things like that, you know, that all feeds into it. But I also think that we have a lot of benefit in that, in recognizing mental health and the fact that we can talk about it, and that we also provide an outlet for people to kind of identify and find another voice that might really speak to them in a time of crisis. So I'm really proud of being part of kind of that community and the arts community that really hopefully a lot of people find solace in times like this. So yeah, thank you so much for all giving your time and sharing with us tonight. I wanted to put it to you guys first. Just, you know, as much as you're all going to talk about different elements, I also want to acknowledge that your own mental health is really important, and that as you've journeyed through, you know, different career paths and whether or not you do work directly in the sector or not, you may have come across some words or advice or, you know, suggestion that might be directly linked to mental health, but might be just linked to kind of keeping things calm, you know, on the right track. And I'd love to hear kind of, yeah, if you've got any golden nuggets just to share. I think it's a great way to kind of start things off and engage with people. And yeah, so I'll put it to who's in my first like top right square. Naomi, if you've got anything to share that you'd love to tell people about that you found really helpful.
Yeah, I guess being a creative and being a freelancer, I think a really useful tool that I use in my daily practice is creating my own routines and rhythms. You know, being a performer, going to work looks very different every time you go to a new venue or you're onto a new stage, a new audience. So, you know, there's an adaptability and a resilience that's required of us. So for me, having routines, you know, like it might be as simple as, you know, a daily walk or a morning tea where I don't look at my phone in the morning for like 10 minutes or something very simple. I find that they really help me stay grounded and I guess in control of my environment to the extent that I can be. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's a great point. Like technology, we're all benefiting from it right now, but also taking a break from it is very muchly needed at times. So yeah, that's really great. Thank you. What about you, Lou?
I think I agree with Naomi. Routine has been pretty good for me, especially the last couple of weeks as the days tend to blur. But I've been, I think, important to stay in touch with people. So checking with family, friends, and it helps you, of course, as well, especially as most people sort of isolating either by themselves or with a partner or in a small group of people. So kind of reaching outside those areas definitely helps. And getting outside and getting fresh air for me has just been like number one. I've been going for an evening walk at the waterfront near my place every night at dusk, and the sunsets are amazing and just makes you forget everything in that moment. So that's been nice.
Oh, awesome. I think, yeah, some great points there. Like, how great is fresh air? Like, I am stoked with the amount of people I've seen out just walking around. Like, dogs are living their best lives right now. Yeah. Also, the amount of dog memes about being walked is primo content. But like, yeah, I think if anything, that's just one of the best things to do is, yeah, getting outside, getting some fresh air. And also, I think you brought up a great point, and it made me remember something that I heard early on that I forgot about. But I had someone who was saying to me that they were calling and connecting, like picking up the phone and calling one new person every day, and checking in on them. And just like the connection that has been created from that, I was like, that is a great idea. And it's just reminded me I need to do that, because I think even if it's one new person a week, it's so easy to get stuck in this like transient connection of text or whatever. Facebook messengers. Yeah. So thank you. That's really great. What about yourself, Claire?
Yeah, so I guess the thing that I've sort of been reminding myself is just being kind to yourself during all of this. I mean, it's not something we've ever maybe experienced in our lifetimes before, and so unprecedented. And so the way we respond to it might be completely different. You might be acting differently. Like, I know some days I'm nowhere near productive as I'd like to be. So just trying to check in yourself and sort of remind yourself, it's okay. Like, we're going through something right now, and we all cope differently. So as long as I'm making it through each day, then that's the best we can do at the moment. That's sort of what it's been getting me through at the moment.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Just, we need to do that any day. But
yeah, true.
Right now, like, there's just so much information out there and so many, I think we can, really be unkind to ourselves. So
especially when you're not performing at maybe the level you were used to before everything, or like you're not, churning things out as quickly, that kind of stuff. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. It's unprecedented, once in 100-year pandemic situation. So, no one can prepare. So thank you.
It goes up and down too. Like, you can have those days or weeks where everyone, you're feeling really good and you get in the but be gentle on those down times as well. And it's okay to watch a bit of Netflix on the couch.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think someone made the point to me about, like, you just can't be going all the time, like you've got to rest. And I was like, oh yeah, you do. Like, that's so true,
because it's not so compartmentalized as it usually is, because
I think it's adjusting to a new set of standards and not setting it, not kind of trying to adapt your new set of standards to the current situation, and not trying to do exactly what it used to be like. And I think that's really important as well.
Definitely.
What about you, Yogi? What's kind of been working for you? Or
I find if I get active early, my day is a little bit better than if I start off slowly, which is hard. But I have a miniature sausage dog, so he keeps me going, and he's glad to have me at home. And just trying not to feel guilty if I don't have something in the next few hours that I have to do. The emails aren't coming through, and just take it for what it is and have a bit of a relax. And
I think I think if we kind of, if we didn't take something away from this and try to use it as a period to be reflective, I think we'd be missing the point a little bit. Because, I mean, we've obviously been presented with a pretty, terrible situation. And, if we didn't kind of use it as an opportunity to kind of look at what we could miss or what we're missing and what we're really appreciative of, then, we are kind of missing the point a little bit.
Just slow down and take time for yourself and your family if you're lucky enough to be with them, and just enjoy the small victories in each day.
That's definitely it. Yeah,
that's great. I'm still you had great advice, but I'm still stuck at the miniature sausage dog. I'm sorry. They're like my favorite.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I think we need to stop and talk about pets in COVID.
I'll have to give you his Instagram.
Oh, there's an Instagram. Sorry, Joel. Are you all right to look after this? I'm just busy now.
Hopefully your dog June isn't in earshot and didn't just hear that your favourite dogs are sausage
She
dogs.
loves miniature sausage dogs. She knows that she's destined to be a miniature sausage dog big sister at some point.
Would she like to be replaced by a sausage dog?
No, she needs a sibling. But I think it's a great point. Like, I know for me, having a pet has just been a game changer, particularly at those start kind of weeks of just like, what the hell is going on? Admittedly, though, June did escape early on in COVID, so that was a bit stressful. But she's back and she's all right now. So, but yeah, I think pets are just such a big thing for mental health year round. Like, not just now, but please, if you do adopt a pet, plan to keep the pet, not just for now. They also have mental health issues, so care for your pets. Joel, how are you doing? How's your head? Where's your head at? What's your advice?
Look, I think it's the little victories that kind of need to be celebrated. And I probably echo all of your sentiments. But yeah, it really is kind of adapting to the new set of standards and not trying to fit, stick to the usual schedule. I think adaptation or adapting or dying is kind of really the key here. I'm sorry to use that concept of dying. That's not in light of the current situation, it's not great. But yeah, adapt or die is probably a great way of looking at it. I think otherwise, you are missing the point a little bit. And if you aren't using that time to reflect on the current situation and what you can appreciate, then you are missing the point. So that's my take on it for sure.
And what about you, Sharon? What's helped you?
I guess there's a few things, and really I'm kind of drawing from some of the positives associated with this forced isolation. For me personally, being able to work from home and offer telehealth has enabled me to spend a lot more time with my pets, my dogs, and my family. And so it's really nice to go out into my own kitchen and grab a coffee in my break and come back to my own desk. It's actually almost a luxury item. And so I'm trying to, suck all of the good stuff out of this sort of forced experience until I don't have to do it anymore. And I think I've seen a lot of good in people. Like, people are finding really creative ways. Like, you've probably heard of the people taking their bins out in interesting garb, and that's kind of made, world news. But I reckon Australians are a really creative bunch, and we're finding interesting ways to connect. And just a point of interest, a neurobiologist has said that when you're keeping in communication with people, it's really important that you don't just rely on texting, because it doesn't release oxytocin, which is our bonding chemical. So we're seeing each other tonight, and so there's some oxytocin happening here, which is a feel-good bonding chemical. You won't get that from text alone. And so if people want to connect, you need to see or hear. And I think one of the panelists already said, I talk to someone new every week. You'll be getting that oxytocin hit. So it might be important for people to know that text just isn't enough to get that.
Well, on that, Sharon, given that, I hope I'm not overgeneralizing here, but a lot of people, the way that they communicate, text tends to be the predominant way in which they communicate, especially with youth and younger generations. how do you go about combating that other than just giving them advice?
Just a little bit of psychoeducation without getting too deeply into it. If we look at the purpose of responding to danger, as cave people, we used to, sense danger and then have a fight or flight response. And then we'd also want to bond with our clan because there's safety in numbers. Now, when you think about ISO, it doesn't allow us to respond in the same way because isolation's been sort of preordained. So our ability to bond with our clan and feel that safety in numbers has to take on different forms. And so, text just doesn't cut it as far as a neurological sort of hormone dump is concerned. And also the accumulative effect of having those hormones build up, it turns into a bit of a stress response, and everybody manages stress differently, and everyone has kind of a predisposition for how much stress they can handle. And this is why we're seeing so many individual differences. Some people are thriving in isolation, whereas some people, their creativity and all those beautiful parts of being a musician just aren't firing off for them. So there's a lot of ways that maybe we can look at the individual, and that's where therapy comes in, and we'll talk about that through people's experiences. But this is where we can kind of tailor our stress management techniques to meet the demands of people's stress responses or lack of them, pretty much. So it's very individual.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think Zoom really wants to hear that as well. Yeah. They'll be stoked. I don't know about everyone, but yeah, I think that really resonates with me. I know, like, I spend a lot of time behind a keyboard and not, I've enjoyed the fact that I'm on Zoom all the time because it's, it is connecting. I'm at home working all day, and as now a lot of people are. So that's a really great point that you just don't even necessarily think about all the time.
Well, it raises a good point in terms of the way in which services offer help. Is a phone line at this time, is it enough? Should it be adapted into something more like a Zoom conferencing kind of situation? Is that something that you've found, Claire? Especially with the youth that you're dealing with, is it predominantly via phone, or how does that go? And have you seen different
It's actually really, yeah, it's an interesting point you bring up, and something we were talking about earlier this week about engagement at the moment is actually quite high with our service. And we talked about, like, what are the reasons behind that and that kind of thing. And we were talking about phone or video both gives, there's no transportation or none of those other anxieties that sometimes add to coming to an appointment, especially mental health related appointment. Mm-hmm. And so we're sort of talking about how it's a positive at the moment, and whether a phone or a video works different for a young person. It's just very, I think, an individual approach about what they prefer. Sometimes they just want to sit in their bed in their PJs, so maybe a phone call's better, or if they want to get on a video chat just to have that those other non-verbal cues sort of heard a bit more. It just varies, I think, but it is I think a positive to take away from all of this, that it definitely has shown that it's a good way to still deliver the service during all of this.
Definitely.
Yogi, I know that you're often on a bit of a Zoom conference call with all your crew. I know it probably started out as just being a bit of a catch up, but how essential do you think it is to kind of keep in contact with everyone that you kind of work with?
I think the first one was a little bit weird for everybody, but now we do it every once a week, and sometimes we have like 14, 15 crew guys on there, and I'm loving it. I get to sit at home. I don't have to drive anyone anywhere. And yeah, I'm actually all my social interaction, namely my life, is when I'm on tour, because I no longer live in my hometown, so I don't have that many people close by, and so I get all my social interaction on tour. So now Zoom calls are where my social interaction is, and it's great to see. There's some older crew jumping on Saturday nights, and there's some younger ones, and they're not even necessarily guys that work together, but someone will know somebody somebody will know somebody else, and then we end up with 14 people, and some people are meeting people for the first time. We have I have a guy that works with me in Europe as my assistant, and he jumps on, and he doesn't know a lot of these people, and he just sits in the corner and listens and practices his English. He's loving it.
Oh, that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
such a great story.
Yeah. But
Aw.
yeah, I do an email on Thursday or Friday pretty much to everyone that I've worked with, whether it's in Angus and Julia's crew, Dope, Lemon, Cog, the Butterfly Effect. And we just say from 7 o'clock, we're going to be online, jump on and say hi. Some people jump on for 5 minutes. Some people we're there for 3 hours. And we ended up having to pay because we were on so long and we didn't want to leave. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an extension of what you do for a role, which is such a face-to-face kind of business and interaction. You know, I'm sure it's something that's, I mean, you're not stuck behind a desk, basically. You know, you are interacting with people on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I didn't realize. I thought I was good by myself, but I realised that I do need interaction. And normally it's through email. I think when I'm at home advancing a tour, and I get. It's like you're still talking to people, but with the emails not coming, now I have to actually speak to them. Mm-hmm. It's good. I look forward to my once a week big Zoom party.
That's good. That's great.
That's so good. We wanted to kind of touch base on, you know, we've got a really great collection of organisational representation, and I think it's always really good to kind of hear about the offerings from each of them, and particularly at this point of time, being the music industry, Support Act is a name that hopefully most people in the industry have heard of. But Lou, I just wanted to kind of throw it over to you just to kind of tell people, you know, what Support Act is and kind of how they can access it and why they can access it as well. I think that's, you know, a really great thing to hear about, particularly this time. I know there's a few different things going on.
Yeah, sure. So Support Act is a national charity. We are sort of based, at the moment, we have team members in Sydney and Melbourne, but I just want to reinforce the fact that we are national. So we are building those relationships around the country too. So this is a nice connection, and we'll definitely build on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Support Act is, it's like Australia's only charity that delivers crisis relief to the music industry. So artists and music workers, sort of as a result of financial hardship, ill health, injury, or mental health issues. So we provide sort of breathing space to help members of the music industry to get back on track if they're going through like a rough patch or need some sort of breathing space. And our assistance can take the form in like financial help, so paying rent or bills or mortgage, car repairs, medical bills, that sort of thing. And we also work with other services. So we have social workers on our team that provide referrals to other support services as well. We also have a funeral fund for to help cover costs of funerals from people in the music industry. We have a Mate program, which is kind of like the Support Act crowdfunding program. So we support friends and families that seek to raise funds for artists or music workers in crisis. And then in June 2018, we established the Support Act Mental Health Wellbeing Helpline. So it's a free, confidential 24/7 counselling service that is available for anyone working in Australian music, and shortly will be opened up to all of the entertainment industry as well. So that can be accessed 24/7. It's a simple phone call, 1-800-959-500. And if you call the helpline, you'll be asked if you need assistance straight away. If it's an emergency, a trained counsellor will be able to help you straight away. Otherwise, they will arrange a time for a counsellor to call you back and line up some sessions, counselling sessions with them as well.
Incredible.
Lou, are your counsellors predominantly people that have worked in the industry or currently still working in the industry? Or
some of them are, yep. So they're all they're not our team members. It is an outsourced counselling service through Access EAP. So some of them are either have entertainment industry experience or they've been trained to work with people in the entertainment industry.
And do you, I mean,
musicians or, you know, have worked in music in the past.
do you find it's of value to have people offering advice that have had experience in the industry, like crew guys and like people that have been in bands, just to validate that information that they're giving to people that are seeking help?
Yeah, absolutely. And also to be able to relate to the music industry, the people that are calling. I think you all know that the music industry has a whole range of different mental health issues that comes up differently to sort of regular general public. So anything from, you know, financial crisis and not knowing when the next paycheck, you know, coming from the gig economy, late nights, touring, being away from family and friends, drugs, alcohol, you know, long days, long drives, that sort of thing. So it is, I think, really important to have counsellors that do understand those issues that people are going through.
I think you raised a fairly valuable point. It is quite a unique perspective for people that work in the industry that don't have full-time work, or they don't have a full-time job. They don't work in the industry in kind of like an office type capacity, or, you know, they're not working for a full-time organization. That's kind of what we've got Yogi and Naomi on board for, because, you know, it's one thing for us to kind of give you insight from our perspective as people who are trying to help, but, you know, we need to kind of hear from people that are receiving the help. So Yogi, can you just give us some indication of how much of an effect this has had on your current lifestyle, you know, and what it means for you to not have a live industry that you can currently work in?
I bought a house in February, 2 weeks before 9 months worth of shows that I was planning, or I was contracted to do. And I did some numbers today just because I was interested. And for example, Dope Lemon crew and band, there would be 14 of us on the road at any given time. We had 28 shows booked in Australia and Europe over a 9-week period. So you're talking about 14 people there that are losing 9 weeks income. And because we don't work every week, the 9 weeks income, because we don't work every week, that 9 weeks could be their income for 4 to 5 months, because a band can't tour constantly because people will just stop coming. And then I did some other numbers, and I ended up with about 30 people before we walk into a venue earning money from our show, whether it be our crew, our band, backline company the audio company we're hiring from, the lighting company. So we walk in 30 people before the venue staff are earning any money from the show. And if we had 28 shows, not including the 14 of us, it means that our little tour, Europe and Australia, would affect 420 people's wages.
And that's important to know, because, you know, a lot of people in Adelaide don't have the kind of experience that you have as a full-time touring tech TM. You know, I mean, there's a small handful of people in Adelaide that have that experience, but your year is made up of shows and work. So you've got you've got a lead in of what, nine months, like generally, of knowing what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, so my last show was the Sound Relief concert, or not the big one, sorry, the one that was at the Maya Music Bowl that Angus and Julia played, Tash Sultana and stuff. So that was my last show, which I believe may even be 3 months today, which would be my longest since 1999 that I haven't worked at a show.
So I mean, it's impact. It's like it can't be understated, like the impact of this situation for you.
I was booked until November, starting in April. So I was having March off, except for possibly Julia Stone was supporting Alanis Morissette maybe at the end of March. But I was starting in April and I was going until the end of November.
And
yeah. And
do you mind? I mean, how are you kind of subsidising your income at the moment? Like, and how are you looking beyond this time, given that the international touring is so crucial to your income? Like, what's the situation like at the moment?
I'm quite fortunate compared to a lot of people in the industry that I had a health scare in 2014 and sort of curved my partying ways since then. So since then, I've been able to get on.
I'm not laughing because he had it. I'm laughing because of the curving of his partying ways.
Yes.
Because I've enjoyed Yogi's time in a professional and a social environment. It's been great. I love him both in both contexts.
I was able to get on top of my taxes. I was able to save some money. So I do have a little bit of money saved. But like I said, I bought a house with my partner in February. We paid one mortgage repayment and then all the work disappeared. And we were lucky enough to freeze our mortgage. So, and my partner, she works for Queensland Health. So her job isn't going anywhere. And for the first time since I was a garbage man in 2003, part-time, I got a job night fill at Coles, but it's 2-3 hour shifts a week. So I work for 6 hours a week at Coles. And at the start of this, that was my big adventure for the week, my 2 shifts at Coles. But the supermarkets have returned back to normal now, so I'm not rostered on. I just get called in when someone chucks a sickie. So, but and I was lucky enough to be able to get JobKeeper, which the payment came through 2 weeks ago or a week ago. I wasn't sure. I was hoping, but I wasn't 100% sure, and it came through. And I think a lot of people in my, like in the crew side of the industry were very nervous and anxious because nobody knew if we were going to be able to get it or not. And I think a lot of people, their mood has picked up and they're feeling a lot better now because a lot of the guys have started to get that, or now they're starting to be able to go back to work in the production companies 1 or 2 days a week. And there seems to be light at the end of the tunnel a little bit. Not, obviously not for the venues, unfortunately, and stuff like that. But without money, people get anxious and that's where the trouble starts. But with a little bit of money, people can pay their bills and it doesn't seem so bad. So,
that's great, Yogi. That's really helpful because it's, we kind of need to really try. And I know for a lot of people out there, they kind of know what the situation is, but I think for some, they don't truly kind of understand. They can't have it articulated to them how much of an effect this not having a live industry currently is to them. And I think you're a prime example of someone that can kind of adequately articulate
everybody
that.
Until a year ago, I lived week to week. If this had happened to me a year ago, 18 months ago, I wouldn't have even been able to really pay for anything in the last month before I would have got the JobKeeper. But I was fortunate enough to have savings that I, fingers crossed the JobKeeper was coming. That, yeah, I'm just lucky that it happened now for me. But there's people less fortunate than me that live week to week, and it's right. It's all right for the government to say you'll be back paid, but you've got to get to the date where you got to be back paid.
Yeah.
Naomi, as a performer, how has it changed things for you? I know you went ahead and put a release out, but how detrimental or how much effect does not being able to play live have on that release cycle for you?
Yeah, so I've had a kind of twofold experience. On the one hand, every single engagement that I had was cancelled and there's no prospect of any live performances, in-person live performances on the horizon. for at least the next couple of months here in Adelaide, at least. So that's scary because A, my career is kind of on hold, and B, I'm a little bit anxious about, you know, how this is going to unfold for the live performance sector. There are so many unknowns as to, you know, when we might be able to return to gigs and what that will look like, and, you know, numbers will obviously have to be managed. Yeah, so no chance of me playing like a sold out sweaty gig anytime soon, which is, you know, frustrating. And on the other hand, I had a song recorded ready to go. So I've had a musical project to focus on, which has been great. And, you know, the online element to what I do has still been going ahead. You know, while that is a little bit problematic in terms of streaming and like actually making any kind of financial return on my work at the moment, you know, that's another whole conversation. But having an outlet and having something to work on has been, I think, really helpful, and helped me kind of feel positive about my creativity and my ability to like contribute to the creative conversation. So yeah, I've had a bit of a twofold experience.
Definitely. Yeah, it's crazy like that, just kind of having, you know, in the planning that goes into play of a release, and, you know, all of the shows and all of that kind of ecosystem, and then to have that kind of a big pause put on it. And it kind of felt like a pause for a little while, and then it was like a halting, like grinding stop. And now there's like every now and then it's kind of like someone wants to start the car, but the car's just kind of like, yeah, nah, we're not starting that car yet. And yeah, it's, you know, it's all over the place. So I think just the emotional turmoil of everyone talking about turning the car on is quite a large one. Like I know personally for me, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go with, this is when I'm going to start up again, because and you know, Lou, you can probably talk about this from a management perspective. For a little while there, I was like, I need to be given directions here, and I don't know when things are happening, and, you know, the amount of planning and then replanning and then, oh no, replanning again. Like that's exhausting and takes a lot out of you. So, and that's just in the music industry. I'm sure that's happening across a lot of places, and particularly the hospo industries had that kind of hit as well. So I'd love to hear from Sharon in terms of some of the implications of what this has had on the creative mind and the creative industries, and some resources that I know you've suggested to us, that love to hear about them so we can share. And Claire, you probably got some as well. For those
I think
watching.
Some fair points have been made, and the music industry creativity is very different to any other kind of way of being. And I think, especially as a clinician, we really do need to respect that and try and work with, you know, maybe the profound sense of loss for some people who are really struggling with low mood or anxiety that's getting in the way of their creative processes. We have to sort of really respect that, you know, this is something that, you know, maybe people with a different kind of day job can manage a bit differently, but, you know, you need your creativity to engage in your craft. And without that, it's quite discouraging to have no outlet for that, or even worse, that creativity tends to dry up. And that brings me back to everyone's individual response to stress, and being isolated is quite different. Some people are more productive than others. And so I think it brings it back to being able to tailor mental health strategies to the person. I'm a very holistic person. I do believe that we need to look at mind, body and soul. I'm only one component of that. And that's why the resources that I've given as links, and I'm not sure where they turn up as part of this, but I'm sure you'll let people know. I've included something that the Australian Psychological Society put together, not necessarily for musicians, but for creative lots. And basically they are free apps, self-help programs, assisted programs to help with things like meditation, mindfulness, positive psychological aspects of things in an effort to maybe kickstart a little bit of that creativity, bring the psychological stress down, so that you start to feel like yourselves again, and maybe you'll get a better shot at that creative, I guess, part of your personality that really make you distinct from any other kind of industry type. And you start to feel like maybe you've got a little bit of control over your environment, because the thing I'm really noticing with creative types is when you feel out of control, you start to worry. And when you worry, your anxiety levels go up, and then you start to lose your sleep cycle. You don't really look after yourselves, like you don't eat well, and it tends just to get a little bit messy. I'm more than happy to help you clean it up, but I really do think that there's some beautiful, really well-designed, scientifically based programs out there for lots of different age groups as well. So everyone's kind of, whether it's older Australians, your kind of age groups, and also the youngsters. There's some beautiful free programs that I think people should and can access quite easily. So those resources are actually listed. I've also thrown in some general information on anxiety and depression, which we're seeing a lot in people struggling with isolation. And it's just a nice, easy to digest way of understanding what those disorders are, what they look like. And if people are struggling with those, then there's some numbers that they can contact so that they can actually do something about it rather than suffering alone. So that's the thing we want to avoid here. People being isolated, not only from their communities, but also within. And I think that doesn't need to happen in our society. We've got some good programs and good people working. And I really want people to be able to access that help if they can.
Well, just on that, Sharon, I mean, can I take a bit of a census or a bit of an idea of how many people actually kind of utilize meditation? Hands up if you do. I love kind of utilize meditation. I know we kind of incorporate it into our music essay staff meetings, and it's I mean, I've been an advocate for it for a long time. Sharon, is there any kind of apps or anything that you kind of advocate for or suggest that are great for people that are just getting into meditation for the first time? Or
I think it's very much personal taste, and perhaps other people on the panel have their favorite one. I can't quite remember the name, but there's one called Breathe that I really like, and it actually helps people who are a wee bit anxious to actually settle themselves down in a really sort of kind and gentle way. So Breathe is one of the apps that I really like, and there's a lot of mindfulness-based apps as well, but they're all listed, and there's a lot of them. All right, so I think it's about personal choice, and because they're free and they're all listed in one area, you can just keep trying them out and see one that kind of suits your soul, I guess. Because I think anyone who's practiced meditation, you tend to find your niche, and rather than it being a one size fits all, it's really nice to be able to have choices about, you know, how it's delivered. And so again, it gets into that sort of personalization, but these programs are so well put together. I think there's something there for everyone. So if you have a look at those apps, there's many, but I like Breathe personally.
Well, on that, I mean, meditation's great. Exercise is also great, I imagine. Naomi, yoga, talk to us. Tell us what it's all about, how effective it's been for you.
Yeah, I mean, another, just on the meditation apps, there's another really great app called Insight Timer.
That's
and that has, it has a lot of, there's a free version and I think a pro version. So it's accessible.
This is the valuable stuff. This is the stuff we learn. What's it called? Can you, like, we're going to make all this information available at the end as well, but clarify the name for me, Naomi?
Insight Timer.
Insight Timer. Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think being a yoga teacher, I'm a massive advocate for being present and moving your body in any way that you can. And my approach to yoga is quite creative, and perhaps speaking a little bit to what Sharon's saying, in that we can kind of customize our practices to suit our personality and our limitations or our preferences. So you know, yoga doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all practice. You can just jump on the mat or your carpet or your floorboards if you don't have a mat, and, you know, do a 5-minute practice using an app like Downward Dog or Down Dog, I think it is, which is free. Or if you're more interested in kind of cultivating and developing your yoga vocabulary, you might go onto something like Glow, which is a online platform that is offering yoga. And pretty much every single established yoga studio is also offering live stream classes at the moment. And as far as I'm aware, they're all at quite a reduced rate. So yoga is kind of more accessible and more affordable than ever now, even though it's in, you know, this kind of strange online delivery, but yeah, I mean, I'm practicing 3 or 4 times a week, and then online, and then also just stretching and going for walks every day. And yeah, I mean, I think, as Lou said, like getting outside and moving, the change in mood is so rapid and so profound just by moving your body, breathing, seeing a different outlook if you're out walking, or just you're getting on your mat and breathing consciously, moving your body consciously, bringing yourself into the present moment. Perhaps if, you know, you've got a bit of a chatty mind, or you're in a worry cycle, just coming into the present moment offers that sense of reprieve. Yeah.
Claire, has meditation sorry, Naomi, did I cut you off? You're good. Claire, have you noticed meditation has had any kind of effective properties with some of the youth that you kind of bring in contact with? Is that something that you kind of advocate for, or?
Yeah, it's definitely something that we have apps that we recommend. I can't think of it off the top of my mind right now, but when people come into the centre, there's a little welcome pack, and we have like a list of apps that we encourage. And I definitely think it would be something that a young person probably works with one of our clinicians with. There's definitely an evidence-based practice that's pretty awesome. I, in the morning with my cup of coffee, usually go through like a mindfulness exercise with it. That way it helps sort of center me for the start of my day. But yeah, mindfulness meditation is definitely a useful thing when they're helping calm that mind when it's kind of anxious during everything right now.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I can't advocate for it more. It's pretty essential for me. Sian, did you have anything else you wanted to cover?
Yeah, just I think something that has come up a little bit in terms of accessing kind of services, and so Support Act and Headspace and obviously private practice are some of the ways in which you can access services. Support Act, I believe, Lou, there's maybe some grants available. Is that correct at the moment as well for music workers, or is that not? Is that?
So we do have crisis relief grants.
Yeah.
We do ask for anyone that needs help, firstly, to ensure that they are. My cat's about to knock the lamp over. Ensure that they apply for job seeker and job keeper first.
Absolutely.
And then still apply to Act if they need help. So there's an application on our website. It's quite simple. Just go online, fill in the details, and one of our social workers will get back to you about that. So we have raised quite a bit of money. Part of my job is to work with community fundraising, and amazing people around the country have been raising money for us, which has been incredible. And we've been quite busy there, but unfortunately we've been also very busy with amount of people that need help. So I think like our increase in crisis relief, we've had a 700% increase in people needing help in the last month alone. So we do suspect it will get quite even busier, and also our wellbeing helpline will get even busier in the coming weeks because, you know, as Yogi said, this is sort of the time that people are starting to sort of use up their savings, or maybe they haven't gotten through to JobKeeper or JobSeeker yet. So this is a time where the crisis is really starting to hurt, and also, you know, we don't know when we'll be back at work, which is really, really hard to try and decide, like, what's going to happen. No one really knows. And so jump on the Support Act website if you need help. Awesome.
Thank you. I think that's just something that, you know, I want to highlight the service, but yeah, also that's what kind of raising money goes raising money for Support Act goes towards, alongside sort of supporting those services. And so links and numbers for Support Act are available on the Music SA website. We've also made a post this evening, and we'll include them when we post this video. But yeah, please utilize those services. And Claire, in terms of Headspace, obviously it's a youth-based service, and that's up to 25.
Correct, 12 to 25 years old.
And can any under 25-year-old kind of walk into a Headspace or call, or is that kind of, what's the process for people to get in touch?
Sure. So I guess it's important to note that anyone can refer, so you don't have to go through a GP to access Headspace or anything like that. And for Headspace Adelaide, we have an online referral form, so it can be super easy. It's just jumping onto the website, working through the referral form steps. With everything going on right now, it's probably the best approach. Otherwise, you can call the centre if you have any questions, or even just finding your local Headspace. So really just chucking into Google Headspace and then your suburb, and the nearest one will pop up near you. With Adelaide, we've got Edinburgh North, and there's also one down south at Onkaparinga. So just finding your local one and seeing what their referral process is. They usually have their own little site. And also at the moment, Headspace Adelaide, we have what we're calling it online functional recovery area on our website. So anyone can jump on there, look at some of the resources we have. We've got different tips and tricks. We have little blog posts going up, different recipes, just a bunch of things that you can kind of look through to sort of help give you some ideas to cope during everything right now. And we also have our podcast starting up again. So season 3 is coming. We actually did our first recording on Zoom, something a bit different at the moment with everything, and that I myself find is a great resource just to listen to, sort of turn some of our fact sheets into sort of a voice to listen to rather than having to read through them. So that can be good just to kind of go for a walk and to listen to one of the podcasts. But yeah, the online referral form is probably the best place that I suggest for people to start. And yeah, this time so much can come up, and so I just suggest people, it's worth just having a chat.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. Something else I wanted to touch on that I think sometimes gets bandied around really easily, but people don't realize how accessible it is getting access to a mental health plan. So I personally have earlier this year accessed a mental health plan. I've had some mental health kind of struggles, and a few people around me kind of really recognize that, and I've known about that, and you know, I work in the arts and try and keep aware of the services that are available, particularly to refer other people to and things like that. But I think it was a really helpful process to go through that myself, and just, you know, I want to put it out there that it is a really accessible thing to do. I just had to go to my local GP. I said why I wanted to kind of see them, and kind of explained how I was feeling, and I completed a short survey. Sharon, it's
probably a DASS, a depression, anxiety and stress scale.
That's it.
A nice baseline measure of where you're at for the last week.
Yeah, so I completed that. That was really really straightforward and easy. It's not sort of an intensive, you know, psychology language based form. And I took that back, and my GP was able to refer me to a clinic. And then partway through my mental health plan, and it kind of has all gone down during COVID. So I'm on Zoom, I'm on telehealth. And due to COVID, it's also the gap, because with some services, there is a small gap. So the mental health plan, and Sharon, you can probably explain this a little bit more, but it is about kind of creating accessible mental health kind of services without having to pay, you know, what can sometimes be really overwhelmingly large fees. And so there is a small gap for the clinic that I'm seeing, but due to COVID, those fees have been waived. So yeah, I just wanted to sort of also put it out there, you know, that it's many people around you, and it's important that you check in with people. It's important that you acknowledge it. And mental health is not a dirty word. It's not a taboo subject. And we are all have our own relationship with our mental health, and just wanted to acknowledge it, and kind of make it real, because sometimes it can be very different. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about mental health plans and that from you, Sharon, as to kind of accessing them, or any other tips that you've got about them.
Yeah, well, my suggestion is, as a clinician, and I work quite closely with the GPs who refer to me, I think it's good. Some GPs actually specialise in mental health. So if you have the energy and you're able to, it might be worth in your area looking for, within general practice, people within the practice who actually specialise in mental health, because you know, they have a greater understanding and perhaps stronger links with some of the psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers that they can actually bring into your care. And also my suggestion is that you book a double appointment, because GPs are under so much time pressure. Mental health care plans, depending on what you're presenting for, can be a bit stressful for them. And so they appreciate just having a little bit of extra time to get to know you, to understand exactly what the problem is, so they can find the right clinician for you. So try and give them enough time to do their job. And that way then you should get a better outcome, I would say. And so when you ring up the practice and you've selected your GP, or you take the receptionist's advice about who they would recommend, just say, look, I'm interested in a mental health care plan. Can I have a double appointment for that, please? And the whole crew really appreciates that. And so basically after that little assessment's done, and it's a very light and easy one for anyone worried about it, it just helps the doctor to orient how severe your symptoms are, and whether or not you need some intense care to start with, or whether or not you can go through the normal sort of, you know, mental health care plan strategy. And that is, they'll ask, do you have any particular psychologists in mind? And again, if you're predisposed, have a look around, do some research. It's a really personal thing. And rather than necessarily being allocated someone who you may be less likely to fit with, there's a lot of psychologists, especially in Adelaide, with websites. And so you can check them out first before you actually go, because, I mean, you've got a lot of power here. And so I think you don't have to do it blindly if you don't want to, but if you do trust your GP, then go for it. But a lot of the clients that I get actually have researched me on the website first, and they've gone to their GP asking for me in particular for particular reasons. And so the GPs are fine with that as well. So you've got a lot of choice as far as who you see at the time. And so basically a mental health care plan will allow you to have 10 sessions with your psychologist in a calendar year. Sometimes you can get a dispensation for a little bit more, depending on what the condition is and how severe it is. And from my perspective, the doctor will send me your mental health care plan before you arrive. I get to have a good look at it. I look at your treatment goals, and then I bring you in for your first assessment, and I work out whether or not that's still accurate. Has anything changed? And what is it that you want as an individual from this process? And by the end of the first session, you should have an understanding about whether or not you feel comfortable working with me or any psychologist, and whether or not you like the treatment approach. Because there's so many ways that we can tackle issues that I think it's nice for you to be aware of what that approach is going to be, and it keeps us on track as well. So if you're able to sort of get that information, you feel a lot more comfortable with the process. It's been normalized. You know what to expect on your sort of your therapeutic journey. And then after 6 sessions, I write back to your GP. You then go back to that doctor, you have a chat about what your progress is, whether you still want to do it, and then they can give you an extension of that plan for another 4 sessions. And once that's complete, I write a finalisation letter to your GP. And if that calendar year ticks over and you still need more assistance, then we start a new mental health care plan.
Thank you. I think that's, it's really important to know kind of the process and how it works. I would personally encourage you to do it sooner rather than later, because the waiting times are quite long. But if you need urgent assistance or information, please do call Lifeline or Beyond Blue or Support Act. those services are for urgent assistance or 000 if there is an emergency. But I think, yeah, understanding the process and, you know, it can be as private and as personalized as you want, or you can also have someone really guide you in it as well. Like, don't be afraid if you don't know, because that's what, you know, those professionals are there to help you with as well. So thank you for that. I just wanted to kind of shed some light on that, because I feel like it's a foreign word that we've, you know, everyone's heard, oh, mental health plan, but they're not familiar with how it all works and how accessible it can be. So
is there, sorry Sharon, is there a like extended wait time at the moment because of telehealth, or like are people just best to contact as soon as possible?
I would, and as I was saying before, we weren't really sure how telehealth was going to translate, but I haven't had a cancellation in 7 weeks, which is unheard of for mental health. So I think it's better to get in there as early as you can. And look, if your symptoms get better, then you can always cancel that appointment, but find one for yourself first. And, you know, there are so many services offering telehealth now. You'll get in somewhere, and then at least you get some help early on. And that way, then you don't have to worry about this so much. So my suggestion is definitely earlier than later. And look, GPs apparently are waiting with open arms for patients at the moment, because we're all avoiding them like the plague. So you'd probably get in really easy to get your mental health care plan.
And how long is the telehealth planned for, do you know?
I think it's up until September, but they will review it. We've had such a good uptake of the service, because again, we weren't sure whether people would like it or not, but they really seem to have taken to it. And I do know there's been some studies that suggest it's just as effective as in person. When you have a face-to-face. Telephone, not as much, but definitely there is a therapeutic benefit, which is really good to know. But yeah, I think until September, and they will review it. It's a fairly open slather at the moment. We never were allowed to do telehealth before this, so I'm hoping they keep it on as a Medicare item, because, you know, I think someone mentioned before, it's nice not to have to get out of bed, especially if you the last thing you want to do is put your face on and then, you know, trudge into someone's office. It's really easy. And also, you know, if I can see you in your space, and it's a lot more informative for me to sort of see who you are in that way, rather than you putting on a show for me when you come into the session. And so I think it's a really nice way to ease people into mental health treatment, but it is pretty busy at the moment. So, you know, we really want to get you in as soon as we can.
Is this something you think you'll implement beyond the COVID restrictions?
If I'm allowed to, and again, it comes back to quality of life for myself as well. I mean, I only work 4 days a week, but they're big days. I think if there's a percentage of my clients who would prefer not to have to drive into the city and are quite happy to have a Zoom or a CoView we use, we've got a very secure platform for therapeutic interactions. We can't use Zoom. We have to use a different platform. But basically, yeah, if the government allows me to, I will certainly offer the service, because it's good for me too. It saves me a drive on Northeast Road.
The other thing is that comes to mind with that is the benefit for regional Australia.
Yes.
Is that something that was previously in place, or?
We had a few telehealth services that were government assisted, but I'm not sure what the uptake was, because there wasn't a lot of, I think, assistance. And also, of course, we've got the NBN, so we have to make sure that we can offer the service with the technology and the infrastructure. I think that's got a lot better. But I'm not sure about the numbers of uptake, but I do know this now has made it a lot more accessible. And I think it's destigmatized telehealth a little bit as a legitimate way to actually help people. And so people go, oh, telehealth, whereas before it's like, oh, telehealth. It's got a different feel now, because we're all using it and we're realizing it's actually working quite well. So yeah, regional and remote have got access to mental health help that they've never had before. So it's really good.
Yeah, that's great, particularly right now.
Yeah, that's some pretty helpful tips that I think a lot of people kind of didn't realize. You know, you kind of there's some pretty practical applications for it. So that's pretty helpful to know, actually. And I think there's a lot of that stuff now with all these, you know, a lot of teleconferencing, a lot of, you know, live streaming performances that I hope kind of stick around beyond the COVID, you know, COVID restrictions. Because I think they've definitely got some practical applications outside of the situation. We're just going to finish up shortly, but just one thing I just wanted to touch before we did. We've spoken about, you know, managing your mental health when you're not traveling around and when you're not on tour. So Yogi, how do you manage your mental health? And how do you kind of, I mean, obviously being a tour manager, you have to manage the mental health of your artists that you're kind of managing. What kind of tools did you put in place, you know, when you were on tour?
When I'm on tour, everyone in the tour party is different. Everyone has, like, you're there working, but everyone has outside influences, like different family lives, different circumstances at home. So I just try and be personable with everyone on an individual level, and then bring everybody into, like, you know, we're all a team. Help your teammate out. Let's get this done together. Let's have the best show we can have. And then, you know, I try and, I just try and get to know everybody on a personal level, so then they don't feel, they can just come to me and say, look, I need to go, my kid's screaming at home, I need to go and FaceTime, and it's, you know, sound check or something like that. You know, you got to be adaptable, and everybody's different, and you just got to make it, you know, look after everybody, and just try and relate to everyone's situation. I think I've toured around the world with Joel's band, I think a long time ago now, a decade and a half ago or something, but
a while ago, yeah.
You know, like, I've been the guy that's partied, so I know where that guy's coming from. I know the guy that's just broken up, or the girl that's just broken up with her partner. I've been through those as well. So you just learn to juggle everybody and hopefully bring everybody together and have a successful tour. But sometimes people don't gel, and that's fine. You don't have to be best friends with everybody, but sometimes you just got to be an adult and work with people and respect other people.
I think, that relatability is probably key.
Yeah,
it's a key across every aspect of the industry, really.
And it's a fun industry. Make sure you're having fun. If you're not having fun, well, find something that you're happy and makes you smile, you know? Like, that's
thanks, Yogi. That's pretty valuable insight, and thanks for bringing up all those memories. I cherish them.
Glory days.
Look, this is usually the time that we would reserve for Q&As. Obviously, we're not having that at the moment because we're not live. But I just did want to touch on one question that did pop up prior to this that we put out to people that were going to register for the event. And I think it's something that could apply to everyone, potentially as a parent, potentially as a brother, a sister, a sibling, a manager, a tour manager. It's how do you support someone or an artist when it comes to carrying their emotional mental load, and how do you do that while managing your own kind of mental load? You know, how do you kind of do that? You know, managers. I think Sian, I'm going to put it to you, seeing as you're a pretty active manager, and I'm not to discredit what you're doing, Lou, but it's just that I know that Paige, Sian is a manager at the moment. So how do you do it?
I think one of the things that I've found in management is just acknowledging and kind of creating, there's my dog, creating sort of space for people to have their own mental health. Like, I think as a manager, to me, it's really important that I know the artists that I work with really well and can read them and know their limits. You know, I have to have the best conversations. I get to deliver the best news, but I also get to deliver the absolute pits of news. And that is sometimes a really sucky job, but it's also sometimes one of the best things ever, when you get to share in that joy of the work that you've worked towards. So I think managing someone's mental health and working with them closely, or managing your friends or your partners or your workmates' mental health is about kind of I don't want to use a cliche, but it's kind of like saying, I see you, and like I see that, and just being like, I acknowledge that is hard. I know for me personally, something that doesn't help my mental health is when I don't get my feelings validated. And so I feel like it's important for the artists that I work with to validate and share in their frustration, and not kind of move them on from the frustration or the anger or the disappointment that they're feeling too quickly. Sometimes I can be like pep talk central, and then sometimes I can, it's like I need to also be the reality check. So it's that balance. But I think it's also really important that we communicate about what works for you and what doesn't. Making sure that, we have a relationship where they can say like you need to calm down on the positive chat, or like, or you need to like, just let me vent. Like, I think that's really important. And I know even like with my partner, I've been like, I just need you just need to be on my side. I don't care if I'm being irrational. We can have that conversation later on. But like in that moment, just like, be with me. And then when it's past, I'll probably come around to it anyway. And you can be like, yeah, cool. I know you're being a psycho. Like, that's fine. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's about riding the wave. And the other thing for me working with artists is, while we have a business arrangement, they're not a product to me, and I don't treat them like they're a product. They're a person, and they've got other commitments and responsibilities, and that can really impact things and can impact their performance, what I can ask them to do in a day. And I think as the person that is delivering that bad and good news, that I kind of need to know when they're on and when they're off, and know the circumstances around that really can impact that, and acknowledge it. And there's so many things that are way more important than that content delivery I need to make to the label, or the show that I need to confirm with the agent. Just go and have your time, be a person, and don't feel like you're a product at the end of the line that everyone's relying you on. I think that's important for anyone, and I'm sure that can be applied to many different things. Sorry, I've gone off on a tangent. This is an important subject to me. But yeah, I think it's important to share the load. And something for me that I just want to add in, something that I've had to learn is to not shy away from sharing my mental health and being like, that's actually too much for me right now, or I need some space, or I'm clocking off. I think that's really important for boundaries and creating a healthy relationship with anyone, but particularly in a management sense as well. So, but yeah, I'm sure Lou's got some great advice on that too.
We're so much alike, Sian. I think that like pretty much ticked exactly what I was going to say. I've worked with several artists that have some pretty severe mental health issues. One was actually hospitalized for maybe about 3 months, and we had to sort of cancel the whole tour, and album release was pushed back, and a lot was cancelled. And so to deal with his problems and helping him, as well as the band, and the disappointment that went with cancelling a whole tour and an album release, that was a lot to deal with. And I still work with that band. That was about 18 months ago, I think it was. but I think like that actually taught me a lot of how to deal with an artist with mental health issues. And I have worked with other artists since. But, you know, I just, you know, he's my friend and I love him to bits. And so I think just checking in every day, I don't even need to say anything. I just say, hi, how you doing? And I think since that day, we've probably missed only 1 or 2 days that we haven't spoken, even just by text message of just like, hi, how you doing? And, you know, that's all that's needed sometimes. And he said when he was going through some really hard days in the hospital, that was just the thing that would get him through, just to get a text message from me, just to say, hey, how you doing? So yeah, I think that taught a lot. And as Yogi said, getting to know everyone in your team is really important. I think that way you can really start to recognize when someone's behavior changes. So if I start to notice, okay, this guy's sleeping a lot, or, you know, that person's not speaking to their partner, you know, and you can kind of work out what's going on and gently, you know, have those conversations with them. And I think, yeah, looking after your own mental health at the same time, that is very important. You know, I've learned how to set those boundaries. And I just say to my team, my artists, I just say, hey guys, I am off tonight, or I'm off for this weekend, or, you know, I'm on the road, I'm at a festival. Text me if it's really important, I'll call you back, but otherwise, you know, I just need some space. And they're all very respectful of that. So I think that's really nice.
So setting those boundaries is pretty important for you.
Yeah, and it's important for you and your partners or your families or the people around you, so that you can be present with them as well, because otherwise you're just always switched on and you're always in work mode, and they don't get the best of you either, and it makes you feel guilty on all parts, whether you're not helping your artist or you're not with your partner, because you just start to feel guilty that you're not doing something right somewhere along the line. So I think setting those boundaries is really important.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the nature of the industry as well. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of us that have part-time jobs to subsidize our true passion, which is, you know, like our management company or our label or our band, and that kind of means that those boundaries aren't realistic to set sometimes, you know, so it's difficult to navigate. But yeah, part of the process of managing your own mental health. Yeah. I think we've taken up enough of everyone's time, but is there anything that anyone wanted to add just before we sign off? I don't want to purposely not, you know, allow you all to have your say, but yeah, by all means, let us know if there's something you want to finish off with, please.
I just want to say that I think being really, as much as you feel comfortable, being really open and transparent about your mental health is good, not only for you as an individual, but also in allowing other people to come forward and be open about their mental health. And a couple of things popped up into my mind. One, I think it's really important to have a good relationship with your GP, because even a good relationship with your GP can provide a bit of support. And if you do want to take it to the next level, you know, for example, getting a mental health plan or going to see a psychologist, having that relationship with your doctor can be really helpful in that process.
Because I mean, it normalizes it. You know, there's a stigma attached with, you know, seeking help for mental health, and you're right. You know, that makes sense for sure, Naomi.
Yeah, and I think the more that we can talk about it openly and comfortably, the more it will allow other people to be, you know, equally as comfortable with it. And yeah, I just wanted to say that I've also accessed a mental health plan a couple of times and had some really, really amazing experiences with psychologists, and some also not so amazing experiences with psychologists. And sometimes it takes a couple of tries with different therapists till you find that relationship that really works for you. And it is just a relationship, you know, you have to be able to communicate and feel like yourself and feel like you're being seen. So if you have a bad experience, or you didn't quite connect with the first therapist that you see, don't be discouraged. Perhaps just try, or ask your friends for advice, or try doing some research as Sharon recommended, and find someone that does kind of see where you're at and that you feel comfortable with.
That's really helpful. Thank you so much. Well, if there isn't any other points that anyone would like to make, I think we'll end it there. especially for our non-SA guests. I'm sure it's
Yeah.
getting a little bit later for you, so you probably got things you want to be doing. But yeah, thank you very much all for your time. This is such valuable information for us that we can pass on to people that need it. So yeah, take care of yourself, and hopefully for those that we've just met, we'll be sure to kind of spruik your wares, you know, to the people in Adelaide who very will need it. And yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much all for your,
Thank you so
time and
much.
Thank
generosity.
you.
For having us.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Stay well, and you know, we'll see you beyond this COVID kind of reality. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, hope to see your faces in real life. Take care.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
See
guys.
you later, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.